You're most welcome to the Capital Gang, Honorable. I don't know which title should come first. Is it Honorable or Captain or Captain is his name? So Honorable Captain Mike Mukula, most welcome to Gang. You've not been here for a while.
I've not been here for some time. Really.
Yes. And good to see that you're in good health.
Thank you. When I see cartoon to Semujju, my brother from Tororo, UPC trying to reclaim the seat, and my wonderful sister, it's a pleasure.
So, thank you. It's good you're here. There's a directive by the president on moving from one middleman to another middleman. This is the average person might understand it like that.
Yeah.
So before addressing the average person, what is the import of that directive? What is
it? There are really two major policy directives, and what I would say, the initiative to amend the Act, the Oil Supply Act of 2003, in order now to move to G2G, which is government to government, as a policy shift, and also ensure that UNOC, the Uganda National Oil Company, comes in to be the lead and major and only supplier of fuel to the country. And you'd also want to note that the history of the supply chain of fuel through Kenya was initially through what you call the OTS, the Open Tender System. And when President Ruto took over power, I don't know about that, he made a shift to G2G because Kenya had a major shortage of forex.
President Ruto is the one who initiated first the government to government.
Government to government. Now, as it were, the argument that Honorable Ruth Nankabira placed before Parliament and as guided by the President was that there was a lot of loss to what you call middlemen in Kenya, and it was then subjecting the high cost of fuel at the pump price. And you'll note that the argument here is because there has been a rise in the pump cost, in the fuel price in the country and in the region. It's also a global factor. But let me go back to the origin of this framework. You recall that there are four things that have caused the high cost of fuel at a global level. One is that the Ukraine-Russia war, which then banned or gave Russia the embargo from the Western Axis. And Russia, which is a major oil supplier, was cut off from the supply chain at the global level. Two, you'll also note that because of that shortage, there was definitely now an initiative which was carried out by Saudi Arabia of recent to try to reduce the output by 1 million barrels every day. That reduction obviously drove the cost of fuel to a high level, a new dimension. The third component, which has emerged obviously, is that the geopolitics, and as fuel is a geopolitical matter, you'll find that at the global level, the fluctuations of fuel as driven by the cost of fuel at the New York Stock Exchange, which is driven by at the Platts, what you would call the cost of a barrel, has also gone up. And that increase is what also caused the cost of fuel to go up. The fourth, which is now creating the simmers, is that normally during the winter time, the cost of fuel in the European axis or the northern axis goes up. and because most people want to heat, naturally the cost of fuel goes up. But the shift has now been brought about by citing that on the side of Kenya, which went and negotiated with Aramco, with the Saudi Arabia company, and negotiated with the countries like United Arab Emirates and Abu Dhabi, the supply chain to Kenya, which deferred payment in forex for some time. I think the initial period was 9 months. It has been extended to next year, December. And it has got a surcharge of cost for fuel. That means that you put in cost of money. And Uganda was paying for that cost. And yet we were paying for that fuel in cash. So indirectly, we are paying for certain costs. If I'm to again give you another narrative, the position is that when you get the middlemen, what you call the forex traders, fuel oil traders, Uganda, or the OMCs, we have 170 oil marketing companies in the country. Yes, 170. And when you look at the market, 3 companies, Shell, Vivo, Total, and Starbucks, control 46% of the market share. Even Starbucks. That's Semujju may be right.
And Starbucks is a new entrant.
It's a new entrant, but they are very aggressive.
And in the background, it is actually after suppliers of
Okay.
The point that you also need to know.
Yes, go on.
That the other 54%, the other 54% of what you would call 167 oil marketing companies control 54%. What does that mean? When you tabulate all this entire supply chain, Ugandan companies hardly have any single share. Hardly any single share. Now, what is fuel and where does the cost come in? And that's why I want to bring you to understand the framework very clearly.
Yeah.
When fuel comes into Mombasa, the costs that are embedded in are basically fees from a Kenya Ports Authority KPA and the pipeline that is through Kenya Pipeline Corporation KPC. Then you have the handling fees. But because Ugandan companies do not have, or most of them do not have the financial muscle, especially the 54, they now fell into the trap of a cycle where you have had to averagely most of the time, the Kenyan companies speculate and buy fuel and hold. Then because we don't have the financial muscle, they buy in bits. That cost amounts to about between $8 to $10 million per month, which is a minimum of about $96 million a year. So Uganda was losing that to the Kenyans, for you to understand the context of what you call the supply chain. Now, in the supply chain of fuel in this country, you have what you call downstream, which is the flow of fuel from Mombasa to Uganda. Then you have midstream, which is obviously, if you want to look at it in a broader context, is a refinery in the country. Then downstream, which brings in our crude oil supply to Mwanza, to Tanga, through the pipeline, as it were. Now, to get you to understand the whole framework, Uganda consumes 7 million liters, between 6.5 to 7 million liters a day. That gives you of fuel. That gives you approximately between 200 to 210 million liters a month. Last year, we spent $1.6 billion on fuel imports. Now, the true thing that you need to see is that in the flow, in the downstream flow chart, where has Uganda been losing? 1 has been the forex traders. 2, the fees that speculators put in. And then 3, you have also got to understand that in terms of the supply chain, for example, our company, Mahadi Infra, we have storage capacity of 70 million liters of fuel. This is the largest, and we occupy 50% of the hospitality or the storage capacity of the country. The other rest of the country, including the storage tanks in Jinja, have a storage of 30 million liters, 10 being petrol.
We're talking about the mini storage capacity
in Jinja, which is got 20. Now it is back to 20 million is diesel, 10 million is for petrol. We do not have strategic fuel reserve, therefore. We don't have capacity to, if you are to follow the Act of 2003, it means that the Act which specified very clearly that a country must have capacity to store fuel for at least 10 days. That can only be now guaranteed by Mahadi. Now, in terms of the supply chain,
does Mahadi have the fuel now?
We have now imported and brought on board over 60 million liters into the country. Mahadi. So for you to contextualize, I want you to understand that in the arrangement, Mahadi has reduced the cost or reduces the cost of fuel by over 50% in terms of transport.
Because of shipping.
Because of shipping and the economies of scale. Because each barge carries 4.5 billion liters. We launched the one MT Kabaka Mutevi about a year ago. We launched yesterday MT Mount Elgon, which also carries 4.5 million liters. Meaning that in terms of saving for the country, for the pump price, the reduction of fuel and logistics by 50% is a plus or an advantage to the country. Finally, if you want to get the context of value chain, a trailer which carries fuel from Eldoret, Kisumu or Nakuru will
carries
charge
about 10,000 liters.
36,000 liters. Between 33 to 36,000 liters. Will charge 161 shillings per liter. Ours charges 64 shillings per liter. And if you want to know that if the cost addition to it is taxes, for diesel is 1,350 for petrol and 1,280 for diesel. Now, and then kerosene is 200 shillings.
Just a small one before.
Yes.
Because you've put in a good kalango for your company. I hope they're doing good things. But so this directive of the president, does it affect your company is the first question. 2, does it annoy the Kenyans who are going to lose out on some money? And 3, does it annoy that 54% constituency in the fuel fraternity?
It has got several implications. Number 1, Uganda's fuel will be cheaper. Let's get that first.
In what time frame?
In the time that you go into G2G.
Okay.
Because the OMCs have already...
Let him finish. Let him address these questions, then I come to you.
Let me get to you to understand.
Go on, Captain Mike.
If you go into this, you remove first of all the $8 to $10 million loss to those speculators per day.
Yeah.
Get that to understand. 2,
is it easy
Uganda has been feeding or paying into the Kenyan economy the millions of dollars which Kenya benefits in order to pay its suppliers. Now that money is going to remain here to the account, which may be extra, depending on what Parliament determines, and it will now then be paid directly to the supplier. What Uganda will pay now is the fees. How does it affect us? It is important, that was the first question asked. It is important for you to understand, being a logistical and hospitality company, our main initiative is to see that we at all costs reduce the cost of movement of fuel into the country by gaining the economies of scale and reducing the transport costs.
And you seem to be doing that.
And we're doing that very well.
Yeah.
Now, I want you to contextualize this. If Uganda continues in that direction. Because the critical point that you now, where the argument moves in, is the single supplier. That's where Parliament will come in and argue. The supplier is Vitol. Vitol owns VTTI in Mombasa. Vitol also owns Shell Vivo, because 100%. Shell has got 152 petrol stations in the country and is the leading market player in the supply chain of fuel in the country. Now, therefore, you want to understand whether from a liberal economy, where economies of demand and supply come into play, that is where you need to find out.
Yeah.
And that's where the argument is.
Yeah.
But I support the policy of giving UNOC the dominant arrangement of managing the supply chain to the country, like Ethiopia has done.
A very, very good background, a very good context, and you delivered it extremely well to the understanding of Honorable Semujju. So, so Honorable Semujju, you're on microphone now.
Understanding is Semujju is on the microphone.
He has broken it well down so well.
You see, Oscar, first of all, international trade is not as simple as NRM people are presenting it.
I mean, there's a bigger question for you. What are they waiting for?
Yeah, let me start with the Magufuli becomes the president in Tanzania. He says, no, we know where sugar is manufactured. How can this Muswahili man be making a lot of money? So he dispatches his minister for finance to go to Brazil, to go everywhere, and created a shortage. Eventually, he discovered that these people that Honorable Mukula is dismissing as speculators, they're not just only traders. That the guy in Tanzania was actually investing in sugarcane growing and processing in Brazil. So they told
Tanzania.
Yeah, they told him, you go back to Semujju in Zanzibar. He's the one for that territory. Wow. So the minister kept, because to get him out of business, the first thing they did was to impound his containers, and then they say they have this and that. So when they came back and they had been referred to the same man, he said the first thing is apology. You spoiled my name. At that time, they were even getting sugar from Zanzibar. So I am sympathetic to the approach that government is taking. Hopefully, that
we have recorded that.
They did the research, and they will not cause us a problem. That is first point. The second point, I don't know which government is pushing for this and feels very good for the public. Look at the telecom industry. Deliberately, they killed the Ugandan company, sold its assets, and some of them almost given out, some of them even to the competitor to the MTN. That's something that Ethiopia doesn't do. Look at the banking sector. All the banks were given away, and the other day, no, we now need a local bank because we can't continue this way. See, the policy of your government under American is to bring investors, is to total surrender. Now they are telling us, wait a minute. For petroleum product, we must do the importation. At the beginning, on the surface, it actually looked like they are the ones who are going to do the importation. Only later to learn that actually, as American has able to explain, that they are in a business with one supplier. They have even signed a contract, even before the law is done in Parliament. As usual, they will come to Parliament and blackmail everybody, this contract, if you don't honor it. The same thing they did when they brought Pinetti. When they brought Pinetti, we were told, you see, we don't have a contract. If you don't approve this motion, we are going to begin paying fines. Yes, and almost even something good, why do you do it that way? Why are you in a hurry? At least you begin by doing it alone.
And Mike Mukula says that's where he didn't say problem. He said argument is. Me, I would say the word he meant was problem.
So you
challenge, okay. That's where the challenge is. He has worded it very carefully.
If I find you at my house and you are running from my house at a terrible speed, I'll think you have done something bad. That's how you are behaving. So even when you are doing something that you are presenting that it's good to the country, first of all, we are very suspicious of you, but two, your own conduct. That you go and sign a contract, and then you come here and say, MPs, do a law very quickly, we want it.
Let me
and then the same seven has become the Kayungirizi. Yes, because that's problem. Remember, yes, signing contracts that were guaranteeing the levels of Lake Victoria. The country told him, don't sell Umeme. Then later he said, this Umeme deal is very bad. Now blaming everybody. So,
I have been reading the two versions of Unsowing the Mustard Seed by Norman Tumuhimbise. Norman Tumuhimbise. Who wants to draw? Two different issues of it. And so when this conversation, and I've got a copy, and when this conversation comes in, I just look back. I just wonder, for a regime that came to blackmail the citizens of Uganda that UPC was so bad, that the best way is to kill these systems and liberalize to the extent that we hand over our government and our livelihoods. Articulate this than Mike, because Mike, you've genuinely almost nearly persuaded me. But I look back to a little bit of a hole on this presentation. The transport elements. Where's our infrastructure? You're absolutely right to talk about it from the coast, from the Kenyan side. Quite clearly, I've been telling most young people I meet around that, you know what? If part of the Kampala traffic thing, and we're actually discussing health and agricultural implications in terms of health, earlier today, if our rail systems were working, I don't know how much it would be, the cost of transportation from Mombasa to Kampala. And I think this is one of the things that need to be embedded. And to the extent that these guys came and found trains, UBC picked from Soroti and took it to Pakwach. NRA has actually sunk it completely. Ironically, as a matter of interest, and I must say this, I've got an interest in Nagongera. The other day, two councillors from Chororo were sent to jail, allegedly for supporting a demonstration over terrible Nagongera Road in Chororo. And I wonder that if people can go to jail for that, for a road which is so bad inside town, and we're talking infrastructure as part of the conversation.
What is in the country are bad.
The other one is so terrible. Ibrahim, you need to come to Nagongera one of these days and see. But the point is this, that the drive for excess profit must come to a stop. And I know, while I'm an optimist, Ibrahim will simply say that, but can you really stop it under this regime? If it were quite clearly the case, you already mentioned it, the question of our banking institutions, the broader financial institutions, including insurances, our health services, completely privatized, educational services privatized. It's very clearly the case that I don't have anybody in my mind who will trust the process that this is not a business confined now in the name of government, but to a few individuals with access. I'm not suggesting Mike would be one of them, but it's actually shocking evidence that Shell, I would be telling people without actual evidence, that Shell, Total, and Starbucks, I didn't know how much I came to the suspicion that Starbucks is possibly the third in that element. None of them are local providers. It's just extraordinary.
And they're just new on the market.
And they just new, and you can actually feel them, and they belong actually to
one second, to guide us, fuel supply downstream is being controlled by foreign companies. All.
Namfi, you're on air and on microphone.
Oscar, I've been taking my notes.
You did?
Since I first had Vitol.
Even today you've been taking
Even today
notes.
I took more notes. Oscar, we shall read about some of the stories about Vitol online. Vitol, in 2020, the US fined Vitol millions of dollars, saying the company had manipulated market prices for fuel imports into California. According to Reuters, the company paid over $95.7 million to settle charges of corruption-based fraud attempted at market price manipulation. In the same year, Vitol paid $164 million to resolve allegations by US of giving bribes to secure oil products deals in Latin America. Earlier in 2019, the company was paid $6 million for an alleged infraction on the market supplies. Further, it is alleged that the controversial operations in 2020 was accused by the United Kingdom of using controversial tactics to charge a record price for its energy plant and dry house power plant. So this is Vitol, who has come now to save us. This is the reputation of Vitol globally. Manipulating prices, involvement in Iraq oil for food exchanges, involvement in Turkey, Ukraine, and Russian oil mafia cartels that have been running around Europe for the last 3 years. Not even just involved, heavily fines. And this information is public because these fines are public. These court cases against Vitol are public. And yet we sit here and want to hand over our souls to Vitol to save us. As I was saying in the break, this is like running from the witch doctor only to learn among night dancers.
No, thank you.
No, Uganda is not the station's official.
No, thank you.
Oscar, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. These good intentions, 70% globally. Most countries, the government controls oil imports by 70%. But look here, Oscar, this is the best way to go about this. The reason why we are where we are is the very same government officials who got us there. The very government officials who sold our souls to these middlemen in Kenya and who have been reaping from these middlemen, and the Ugandan wananchi have been the ones paying the high prices. And none of these people have ever come out to even complain about these prices. Europe has never come out to tell us we are fighting these prices, we are fighting middlemen, we've been making this noise. The prices go up during COVID. We see the global prices going down to even the negatives. Our prices continue soaring. We see the Ukrainian war starts, with the prices go up. When the repercussions have ended, their agreements, Russian oil is back on the market, we don't see these prices going down. Right now our prices are going up. I don't even know which excuse do they have now. And yet, not at any given time have I ever had a UNOC official coming to tell us that we have to deal with these prices, coming to tell us that we have to do something about our lack of reserves. We had reserves in ginger. They handed them back to them. Okay, government officials. Let's go to this Ministry of Energy. I'm mentioning UNOC because they're the ones who are purporting to become the buyers.
No, they are a new company.
They are a new company.
And they are not purporting, they are now being handed over. Which as many people have agreed.
Let me say Ministry of Energy.
Nothing. Which many people have agreed. That would be the good thing
Ministry
to do.
of Energy. Ministry of Energy has never come out to protect us against soaring fuel prices, even when palm prices keep going up, even when middlemen keep, I won't use a bad word on air, keep messing us up. And yet now, Vitol comes very, very dirty, very, very implicated in every manner of scandal globally. And yet, the same Ministry of Energy looks to this monster, this diabolical creature, to come and save us.
You being a lawyer, so.
Number two.
You being a lawyer, so.
What happens if the prices don't go down? What happened? Do we have these markers?
Those are better questions.
From what to what? If they tell us they are removing middlemen, and what if they don't go down? Do we then chase them? Is there any measures in place that we've tied ourselves to them for 5 years? Because the initial deal, they're saying it's for 5 years. So within those 5 years...
Or if we start a middleman war with Kenyans and so on.
How does that end? We are starting global wars. And then the other thing I wanted to point out, Oscar, the same government that has left us at the mercy of these number plate thugs who are going to charge us 735,000 shillings per number plate. They are businessmen. The same government which has left us at the mercy of those people is purporting now to save us from Kenyan middlemen. I really don't think that will wash. So at the end of the day, let's not erode even the little trust Ugandans have in government, and they don't have much. Okay, they don't have any. But then when you come again to promise that to look out for us, we're not going to believe you when on the other hand, you're leaving us at the mercy of some other side.
Many will say, we will agree with Mike Mikula and Ibra Semujju that the move may be good and the argument is where you are placed, without using the bad words you have used.
I didn't use bad words, Oscar.
Honorable.
She just intended to.
I want to agree with her. She didn't use any bad word. This time around.
This time round. Is it because she was she read everything on Vitol?
No, first of all, the facts which she came up with were useful to many listeners. They didn't know about it.
And are in the public domain,
Yes.
international domain.
They are there, but many of our people are lazy. They don't go around, doing research, simple, basic research. They don't do that. But having said that, Oscar and Captain Michael Mukora, my uncle, knows this. In Kenya, the most powerful, all politicians are businessmen. And the politics of Kenya is so intertwined with the business. This biggest business called fuel business has Kenyan politicians in it, and therefore internal Kenyan politics. After the previous regime lapsed, a new political class came in, and their rivalries. And Captain Mukula knows this more than anybody of us in these studios. There are fights of trying to destroy each other economically and politically, and the fuel business is at the center of it. There's another group, by the way, even when you talk about this particular company, one of the 5 Starbucks, he knows that that company, there is public knowledge, it is a Ruto company. We all know it. So as we talk now, last week on Wednesday, there is a court order which has given what we call a conservatory or an injunction against this deal.
Against the fuel directive.
Yes, again, and the one who have signed, including being a party to that suit, they have sued. So this whole thing, the contradictions are just beginning. And let me tell you, and again, my uncle Mike knows this. Fuel business is one of the most dangerous businesses in the world. In the world. I happened to play a little bit when you were trying to regionalize the law in this country. And I know I got so many facts about this industry that sometimes I feel it's to talk about them. They are so scary. Nobody is going to allow this bill just to go on. Forget it. It's going to be a fight and a fight and a fight. And I can tell you, Mike, if you guys never envisage this fight, you are going to do this country a very big disservice. And the consequences of it will certainly be counterproductive. At the end of the day, we'll have a crisis, and the prices will go up, and the public is going to come hard and hard on you. Why? Why did the government, for example, in my view, rush and sign a deal without regularizing in the law? Why? Because if you don't do things transparently, however well-intentioned you are, people doubt you. And that's where the problem is, Oscar. However well-intentioned, is there a problem? We all agree. We all agree, nobody doubts it. And what is the solution? Is the solution what you are doing and how you are doing it? There are challenges. Brahim says there are problems. You say there are what? Michael says there are what? There is some argument there. So all of us are agreed on this table and actually in the country that there are challenges about this particular transaction. And we should have envisaged it, thought about it before we inked a deal. Assuming this deal doesn't go through, are there economic consequences? And how do we deal with them? So, there's going to be a long, protracted legal battle in Kenya, and it has started. For example, one of the parties
who has already sent the petition.
No, the order. There's already a court order.
Paper, yes.
There is already a court order. Yes. And you know, because one of the parties that sued. So this, I don't think this is something which is going to take place and be concluded in one week, one day. No, it's going to be protracted. Look at the names of the people behind that petition. Just look at them. You're Kenyan somehow, because you have been part of this Kenyan politics and so on, the combos and so on. These are not.
He has a bit of Kenyan blood in him.
No, he's just he has friends in Kenya, political friends in Kenya.
I can see my
Mutawani.
My Mutawani is doing very well. He's answering it very well.
He doesn't have, but he has friends in Kenya and so on. Look, the names like those combos and so on, they are not Yoka Tutuzia. These are the people who matter in that place. And the judiciary in Kenya seems to be a little bit different from the judiciary within this region. Because it is also in...
He's in the department.
You think I wanted to be clear? I did want to, it was deliberate.
He's in that very department.
So, Mike, yes, whatever you are saying is smooth sailing. But I'm telling you, there are so many obstacles, hurdles along the way. And if by the time you ink this deal, you never envisage this sort of thing,
then that was
you are going to have a big problem.
Let's have this topic is not going away. Let's come back to you for 2 minutes to conclude on it, only for now, because the topic is going to grow and grow and grow.
All major wars, in modern wars, recent wars, have been on oil. Yes. The war in Iraq, the war in Libya, the war in Angola, the war in Nigeria, Biafra. If you looked at now Russia, Ukraine, it's just fuel, strategic. Now, definitely I do agree with the brothers and my sister here. And as Katuntu has said, fuel is a very fluid geopolitical matter. Very, very fluid. But let's come back home. Let me get you to contextualize a few arguments here. Currently, as we talk now, fuel in East African region, the three major countries, Tanzania, Kenya, and Uganda. Fuel is more expensive in Kenya than Uganda and Tanzania. And yet Kenya is the one that is what you call the gate of entry of fuel to the region. Because Kenya has got 9 different levies and taxes on fuel, including the recent increase of VAT from 8% to 16%. So fuel has gone, today it's about 217 shillings per litre in Kenya.
It's not about taxation.
Taxation.
It is,
whereas Uganda, we have one tax levy, which Kenya, the fuel levies and these 9 contribute 55% of the cost of fuel at the pump price. 55% because of these 9 taxes. That's number one. Number two, I also want you to get to understand that it's a sovereign right for Uganda, and the lawyers here know it very well, for you to have access to the sea. That's the sovereign right. So to determine import into the country, and that's why you want to know that when in 2007, 2008, when Kenya had political upheavals, fuel in this country, when they banned trucks in Eldoret, Nakuru, and so on and so forth, and uprooted railway line, fuel went up beyond the reach of the ordinary pump or ordinary consumer. Yeah. Now, because we did not have strategic reserves, when a country is landlocked, there are two things that you must have.
But
There are
the
two things.
reserves we have, can they run you for a month?
Let me tell you one thing. The idea now for the country is to look at two things: rolling stocks, which is a component of trade of fuel, and strategic reserves. Now, how that is determined is a policy framework within the ministry. Now, the other point that you need to get to understand is that in terms of imports, even if we were to look at an alternative of Tanzania, all our major inflows into the country downstream, 90% is through Kenya, 10% is through Tanzania. What does that mean? Because there is no pipeline from either Tanga or Mwanza, or Dar es Salaam to Mwanza, and the only alternative means you can uplift or lift that fuel from is by road. Tanzania does not allow a single truck of Kenya or foreign to move fuel out of Tanzania to any neighboring country unless that truck is delivering fuel to that specific country. The transporters are very strong on that. What am I saying? In terms of logistics for a country like Uganda, I want you to get to the bottom of the whole matter, which is very, very important.
Yes, that's the one we shall discuss next week.
To reduce the palm price in the country is a major advantage to the country because fuel is a cost pusher. It's a major cost pusher.
Yeah, but really,
so
Mike,
this decision, which is strategic, core and strategic,
so
is correct.
Thank you.
Now the argument is the supplier.
Yeah.
That is where you need
to wait
to put the argument.
Let us wait.
even the cost
He has said.
of transportation.
Yeah, he has said that is where you need to think about the argument, not the challenge. So, Honorable Semujju and Joseph Otieno, this is one of your favorite subjects. Equal Opportunities Report. We can have a little taster here.
Only 2 minutes.
Because you've been talking and talking and talking and talking. So, and you know, look at that whole corner there. They are really, that is.
I
have not read the
It's that axis
I have not read the report, but I have read the reports on the report, including Banyankole dominating public jobs and so on and so forth. For me, even if there was, even if there was,
on this topic, even if they wake you up just like that, you are ready.
Because this is what I live. I have told you, Oscar, during the Christmas period, there is traffic jam from Kampala up to Chazanga, wealth flowing in one direction. I have used the road going to Palisa to Komi. And I was the only car for about 40 minutes. Even asked the MPs from there. That road going to Palisa and then Komi. But here, you see the traffic jam every day. Really, I am very happy that now it is being done by a commission. When I checked the commission in Kusasa, I did a report on human resource. 49% of the CEOs were from Western Uganda. 49%. And correspondingly...
But some people say you are unfair in breaking down Western Uganda. You always say Western Uganda, but when you come to Central, you never say Buganda and Busoga, and that one you say Uganda, please. No, it says Central Uganda.
For us,
Central Uganda.
yeah, we are not Central.
Oscar,
for us, we are Easterners.
Oscar,
You don't get to East, but Busoga is
No.
Oscar,
Me,
Yes.
Otieno, and Mike, we are Easterners. Proud Easterners, for that matter.
in this... Oscar, the Central region, by the way, you need to be very careful when you are looking at it. For example, this report looks about representation in Parliament, who has MPs. Nearly now, 30% of the MPs in Uganda are from Banyankole. They are the ones who are representing districts in Uganda. These things never happen in other areas. That's why you see I've seen Mao's writing today when he speaks about Warara. Let me tell you, if what Mao has said had been said by a Muganda about Warara, you would be in prison. I have been jailed here for promoting sectarianism, for complaining at the time that all the
generals in the military were from Banyankole and speaking one language. And for 2 years I was between Uganda Road and the police.
Yeah, but they speak Swahili.
They speak Banyankole. I have told you when the queen came here at the checkpoint at Serena, they are saying Oguamu checking. That's the language they were using even when the queen was visiting. So this report helps some of us who have been charged with promoting sectarianism.
Because I said that axis there.
Axis of.
Is this
After the,
you also profiling?
No, it's shocking. It is shocking. No, I'm Mr. Uganda nationalist. But and very UPC, yes. No, under UPC government, there is no way in which such a thing would happen. But genuinely, no, there's no way. And peak every facet of government and representation, including.
We're not debating because we're out of time.
No, the report is there, but I just want to help the West here. It turns out that I was on a certain program the other day, and that in the whole talk about Westerners and generals in the army.
Oscar, when people start talking about this topic, I don't know why they shy away from it, especially when we are mentioning facts. And then people say, oh, it's not tribalistic, and Banyankole also qualified. That's not that is not the point. You can't run away from facts that speak for themselves. And even if you run away from them.
But you also don't want to come across as someone who's tribalist.
Of course, you don't, but it depends on how you say it. Because
the offense that was created was broadcasting and writing. But being sectarian in appointment is not an offense. When you write about it, it's an offense.
Oscar, someone was telling me, we Banyoro are disadvantaged because people keep saying we are from the West and yet we haven't benefited. I told them is if a one Nafka and a one Kugonza went to URA for a job, Kugonza will get before Nafka. So you will also, you also, but you see, Oscar, this is a problem of us as the citizenry. You can't even, of course, the government is enabling it because, of course, the government, most of the people there have gotten into power and their positions this way. So there is no way they can fight it. But it's a disease, it's a cancer. There is no way nepotism thrives, sectarianism thrives, and then these offices are efficient. Because you're not going to choose the best. You are going to choose someone from your tribe. So I don't know whether, and we've had audios come out from NRM meetings, high-level NRM meetings. I think, was it one of those generals saying that Banyankole has to rule forever, they will get all these positions, those, and these are high-level meetings.
So,
who
thank you.
This information has been. So it's a deliberate policy.
Thank you, Nancy.
And I'm glad now it's in writing somewhere.
We shall get the report and we shall get the thinking behind it. Levi Arrow says, I'm agreeing with Semujju for the first time, especially on the selling of UTL assets to another private company. Having left the axis, let's switch. The vice chairman will close down today.